This morning for our Time for All Ages, I'll be talking with two members of our youth group who have not just watched the history of the moment unfold, but who have stepped into leadership to help shape the changes they want to see in the world. First, I'll speak with Janita Aquino-Patson, who is serving as the junior representative to the Concord School Board. And then I'll speak with Daniel Lichtenberger, who ran for a position that amounts to co-president of his school, the United World College in Armenia. Thank you both for speaking with me today. We'll start with Janita.
So apparently they had different candidates that they were looking at, and I had an interview, and so I interviewed and I was appointed it after they got to know me a little bit and what my goals were.
So what were your goals when you decided to accept this challenge?
During the interview, they asked a lot of different questions, and so one of them was like, what was my goal? And so I talked a little bit about, with everything happening, there isn't a lot of, there's not a person of color on the school board at the moment. And so I felt like it was important to fit that role if I could. I'm pretty widely spread out across my school. I'm in a lot of different friend groups, I guess. So I know kids who did varsity soccer. And then I also know a lot of the Nepalese community because I go to our ELL program and I just do my work there. But one of my goals was just to try to get the school and people who don't usually understand what's happening a choice or an opportunity to have a better understanding what's happening with our school district. And
so did you expect to end up on the front page of the Concord Monitor?
No, I didn't. No.
What was that? What did that feel like when you saw that?
I didn't originally. When I said that, I really didn't like what I said. But it was definitely fun to see my name there and have people know that I'm contributing to trying to make a change in our school district.
And you did make a big change. What was, just tell the folks at home what the change was that you and Alice were advocating for.
So that was my first night with the school board, and they were talking about changing Columbus Day into Indigenous Peoples Day. A good amount of the school board wanted to just have it as no name.
That must have felt kind of amazing to have a voice in that right at your first meeting.
Yeah, so I had the opportunity to speak if I felt comfortable, and I thought it was very important to speak up, especially with that topic and being an Indigenous. And a lot of the times when I'll tell someone that I'm an Indigenous woman from Guatemala, or a Mayan Indian in particularly, they're like, oh, I thought those were extinct, or an urban legend or something. And so I think it's really important that people in our community understand that there still are people out there practicing their traditions, and I think it's really important we're not glorifying a man who did a mass genocide and a lot of other things in our country. So I think it's important to start at a young age too, to start educating kids in a different way and try to change our curriculum for the better.
And did you feel like they listened to you? Do you feel like you made a difference?
Yeah, and I know there was some school board members who were iffy about changing it, but ultimately at the end, after they heard us speak, they decided to change it to Indigenous Peoples Day.
It takes a little courage to believe that you have something to offer, and it's easy to sit back and complain, but yeah. I'm really proud of you for getting out there in the middle of the decision making and making your voice heard. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, hello everyone. My name is Daniel. I'm from the United States. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm running to represent you all as a core member for this upcoming term. When creating the perfect core, you would of course want someone with good problem solving and critical thinking skills. But more importantly, you want someone who can really listen properly and take in the ideas of others instead of relying solely on their own. A good core should not only be able to listen, but should be able to organize any accumulated thoughts and ideas, be able to prioritize these thoughts and ideas based on relevance and necessity, and be able to understand the strengths and weaknesses of those around them in order to delegate tasks and responsibilities accordingly. And that whole process is one of my biggest strengths as a leader. I'm not the loudest in the room, that I listen, organize, and make things easier for the people around me. I'm not going to come out here and run on a list of a few campaign promises that will ultimately be obsolete in a month. Instead, I'm running with the full understanding that I don't have all the answers. I'm running with the full understanding that I have a lot to learn. But I'm also running with the full understanding that I have the commitment, dedication, and grit required to effectively serve and represent this community. Thank you very much.
You decided to run for a student government office at the United World College where you are in Armenia, right?
Yeah,
That's
Armenia.
cool. What is that position? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so basically there's the position I ran for is core, which is basically like a co-president. So there's 8 different positions available. One representative for each house or tune. Tune is the Armenian word for house. And so there's, I'm in House or Tune Vardanis, and so there's one representative who's elected by the tune to represent that tune. But then there's 2 cores who are kind of like the leaders of the student council and representatives of the student body who are elected by the entire student body. So that was the position I ran for, was a core.
How did youth group impact your decision to run for that office?
Basically, one of the questions I got asked was, how would you see yourself in the social dynamic of the student council? I feel like because of youth group, and I gave a little description of what youth group was like, because of youth group, I feel like I understand my place in a very similar group, in a similar group, because it's like 8 kids who are discussing important matters that have to do with the local community. So like it felt very similar to things that we had already done. So I think that experience that I've had over the past 3 years with youth group has been like really important, and like I didn't actually end up winning, but if I had, then I mean those skills would have certainly come in handy.
And how was the experience of running? Are you discouraged, or will you run again?
No, I'm not going to run again for core, but I'm going to run as a tune representative in the second term. I'm far from discouraged though, because at the end, even though I didn't win, it was still like rewarding. Like I still feel like I learned a lot and just got my name out there to the people of the school as well in a context of leader. I was sad, but like I'm definitely far from discouraged.
Do you have any thoughts about a cause that would be important to you in leadership?
One of the things that I recognized when I was, running was that things are constantly changing and there's always new ideas. So I came in with the mindset of I'm going to be just listening and be the focal point for the community's ideas, not running on my own ideas, running on the community's ideas, and running as an organized leader who can listen properly. That being said, though, I think one of the biggest things that if I did have to come up with one concrete example would be with the way that we did quarantine, and what these groups cause is kind of like a clique style, a social structure where people are their best friends right now are based not on who they're most compatible with, but mostly based on where they came from. So that's kind of a different dynamic that hasn't really been seen at UWC before, because everybody arrives at the same time normally. It's beginning to unravel itself a little bit, but at the same time, we could always make that process faster. And that's one of the biggest problems I saw.
Anything else that you want to get out there as part of your pitch for participating in your community?
I would say, if I had to give one piece of advice, it's like, don't be afraid of failure, because one thing that I was like originally afraid that like I'm probably not going to do it, so why would I try? Well, the thing is, like, I learned so much just from running that I was going to gain something from it no matter what happened. Like I would have gained the most obviously if I had one, but I still gained plenty of experience, and it's making me passionate about running for Tune Rep next time. So basically I would say get out there and be active in your community.